All right, well, let's go to a battle between the hedges now. We've got the ever polarizing Lane Kiffin leading his Ole Miss Rebs into Athens, Georgia to take on the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are 7.5-point favorites. Lane Kiffin does not have to worry about whether or not the home students show up because they're on the road. That can't factor into his game plan for this game. But we watched them struggle last week in a sleepy spot in a look-ahead opportunity against Washington State. Trinidad Chambliss looked mortal for the first time, and now he's going on the road to take on Georgia, who hasn't exactly looked amazing in their own right, but it has felt like the defense maybe is taking those strides forward. And anytime you play between the hedges, it's going to be a daunting task.
Yeah, this is really a game between a couple of teams that I don't really love right now. I'm going to take Ole Miss plus the 7.5, but a Georgia victory here. So, look, there's a couple concerns I have about both sides of this. Obviously, on the Georgia side, the big issue for me that I've mentioned a couple of times on this show is the pass game. I still don't believe in Gunnar Stockton as a passer. I know that he looked really good against Tennessee. He's not looked as good since, right? It just really hasn't been a lot of downfield stuff that you could really feel like is explosive and is going to flip this game. The good news for them is they can run the ball this year, and they look like the Georgia of old. So if they can keep running the ball really well, I feel great about their prospects and their opportunities in this game. I get it sometimes that it's just, game script, but even last week against Auburn, they needed passing offense to pull away in this one. They only had 79 yards rushing against a very good Auburn defense. They only had 217 through the air, 5.7 per completion. That's just not getting it done, right? That's not stretching a defense and doing what you need to ultimately pull away in that game. Yes, they won. Yes, there were some questionable calls in that one, but at the end of the day, they didn't do what they needed to leave no doubt. Meanwhile, gosh, you really hope that last week got Ole Miss's attention, right? Like, you really hope that locker room went back and said, okay, well, we feel pretty lucky to get out of that one because we did not bring our A game or our B game and maybe not even our C game. We showed up and we borderline failed and are lucky to get out with the win. That's cool. They're getting some credit for that LSU win, which really isn't looking that good at this point. It doesn't seem like LSU can do very much on the offensive side. The good news, though, is if you're looking for one big bright spot here, the good news for Georgia is that except for LSU, everyone has been able to run on Ole Miss. It's exactly what you want to do if you're playing the Rebs. You want to try to run the ball. They've given up big totals. So if you're Georgia, lean on that run, try to control this game. And like in most games, I think Georgia's going to be able to control this one through the ground game and being able to kind of control time of possession, maybe keep the offense out of rhythm a little bit, make them make the most of their opportunities. I just don't see them having the explosiveness to pull away in this one. So I'm going to pick Georgia to win this thing 27-23. A little bit of a closer game than maybe you'd like, but maybe a little bit of a cover towards the end there. Touchdown makes it seem like it's close for Ole Miss, but it really wasn't that close. I'm never gonna trust this Georgia team to run away with the game until I see Gunnar Stockton really become a threat through the air.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia to cover this spread, guys. I think most of our opinions on Georgia are predicated on them not scoring a lot of points, other than the Tennessee game, which I don't know what that says about Tennessee's defense. We'll get into Tennessee a little bit later. But not scoring a lot of points and starting slow. But I wonder what our opinion of Georgia would be, guys, if Kirby just took those points on the goal line. He goes for it on fourth down. I get you want to go for the win. You want to capitalize on the momentum there. But they had all the momentum. Their defense had fully woken up in that Alabama second half. If he just takes the points, I think they get another stop, and then you just need a field goal and you're undefeated. And Alabama might be playing for their playoff lives each and every week. So I think our opinions on Georgia are a little skewed. Now I'm going to go back to a take I had a couple weeks ago. I just don't think that we're stuck. A lot of us are still stuck in like a 2012 to 2015 mindset where offense has to be really pretty and really just sexy, for lack of a better term, to have a good team. And Georgia's offense, they're not putting up a ton of points. They're on pace for a really low number in total points. But from a game control perspective and maximizing the talent that they do have, in most of the games, especially in the second half of games, they're doing exactly what they need to do to win and win by multiple scores. If you just had a second half team, if you got what Georgia is in the second half of all their games, they're in the national championship conversation like no problem. So I think Georgia kind of flexes their muscle a little bit this week. I don't trust Lane Kiffin on the road. Lane Kiffin has not been good on the road in these ranked matchups. He is 1-5, just like Lincoln Riley. It's ironic that that's the same number, but he's 1-5 on the road in ranked matchups as the head coach at Ole Miss. And his one win is kind of fraudulent too. It's a win at Tulane a few years ago when Tulane had snuck into the AP top 25 at 24. Don't trust Lane Kiffin here. I do trust Georgia. And Garrett, you mentioned the run game on the ground when Georgia's on offense. The Ole Miss defense is really struggling to stop the run, 96th at stopping the run. But it's also on the flip side too. Georgia stopping the run. They're fourth in success rate against the run this year. If they can make Ole Miss one-dimensional, I think they will win going away. Going away might look like 21-10. Like, we just need to kind of adjust our expectations for what going away looks like for Georgia. Might be 21-10, might be 24-13 type of situation, but I think this is a game where for most of the second half, it's not really in doubt, and Georgia is going to kind of be in control of it.
I do wonder how Ole Miss decides to move the ball and what their game plan is, because Quan Lacey is one of the best running backs in the conference. But to your point, Georgia stops the run, and they've made their name on defense doing that. The pass defense has been leaky this year, and yet they still have a top 20 overall defense because of that fourth ranked success rate stopping the run. Ole Miss, as we've told you now for a number of years, everybody thinks about them as this air raid team because they put up gaudy numbers and they put up 70 against, Sister Francis's, home for the poor. But all of that starts on the ground. And Ole Miss actually wants to establish their ground game to set up the pass. I wonder, and we talked about this on the live show on Saturday, I wonder if Ole Miss is not able to do that and get Trinidad Chambliss in some sort of comfortable rhythm. If Ole Miss can't get the engine started early, that's their opportunity against Georgia. Time and time again, we've seen if you want to beat the Dogs, you have to get going early and then just pray you hang on, because the comeback is coming. That second half team is on its way, and Kirby Smart and the boys are going to get halftime adjustments made. I don't know if Ole Miss has the ability, if they can't run the ball, to get started early. And we talked about whether or not they would have the conversation about, hey, at what point do you maybe go back to Austin Simmons? Is he even an option here, or are you going to ride and die with Trinidad Chambliss? Again, going back to my rubric, I've got the better defense at home. I think I've probably got the more consistent quarterback at home, and I've got a really solid running game that's going to be able to take advantage of this Ole Miss rush defense. Walter Nolan's not walking back through that door, unfortunately, for the Rebs. So I'm on Georgia minus the 7.5 as well. I think Kirby's due for a statement game, right? He's the master of talking about rat poison and getting these guys up for it. And we knew that Auburn was going to be a tricky spot. Trey, you picked Auburn outright because of those matchups and because what typically happens. And and it did not feel like it was honestly taken away from you there. But Georgia's due for a statement, and I think they've got a top 5 opponent in their backyard. I think this is where Kirby flexes his muscle a little bit, and we're talking about Georgia as maybe one of the elite teams after Saturday night. So let us know where your pick is. Ole Miss, Georgia, between the hedges. Give us your pick in the comments at 3TechPod, or if you are listening on the Spotify app right now, which I know many of you guys are, swipe up, leave us a comment. We'd love to have your picks as well.